Hi, I am going to read something from my work. Um, this time it is about sounding horrible. And yes, there is a lot that we need to talk about when it comes to the difference between our disembodied language, which is our usual way of talking, and our embodied language, which is my way of talking. I do not adhere to anyone's usual way of talking. And so, because I know that the embodied language which I am talking about, it sounds good. Yeah. And so, when you hear that you sound good, you want to continue with that way of talking. And you realize as you do that, as you talk with yourself and as you let yourself know that you can have the way of speaking which you want, the way of speaking that fits with you, the way of speaking which is yours, the way of speaking in which you understand yourself, in which you are yourself, in which you feel good about yourself. You should have that way of speaking to be happy. Without that way of speaking, you are lost. You are engaging in what I call disembodied language. So, disembodied language, it sounds horrible. And you must listen to yourself and you must admit for yourself that yes, it is true what I say. And it's not because I say it, it's because you say it. When you say it and when you admit to yourself like, oh my gosh, I'm sounding so irritated, I'm sounding so stressed, I'm sounding so agitated, I'm sounding so restless. If you cannot admit to yourself that you sound horrible, when you again and again sound like that you're sounding tiring, you're wearing yourself out by sounding like that. Yeah. So you have to admit it to yourself. I cannot admit it for you. You have to admit it for yourself. So here you go. This piece is called Sounding Horrible. Although we don't listen to it, and although we remain unconscious about it, if we would take the time to listen to it, we would know that we don't really want to listen to our own disembodied language because we just sound horrible. Yeah. So other people don't want to listen to us, but we don't even want to listen to ourselves. Yeah. Our usual way of talking, which is called disembodied language, in which we're not in touch with ourselves, in which we're not listening to ourselves. Our usual way of talking, which is going on everywhere 24/7, just sounds terrible. And yet we never acknowledge that the reason we don't listen to each other and get along with each other is because we don't listen to ourselves while we speak. Yes. Surely, we also don't get along with ourselves. And this is why we imagine that we have troubling thoughts. We imagine that we have troubling thoughts because there is no language inside of us. But even though we just live in the la la land of inner speech, we just continue to live in this troublesome so-called state of mind. Yeah, restless mind, whatever we call this. Yeah, which is total nonsense, has nothing to do with our language, because if we would just take the time to one moment sit with ourselves and listen to ourselves and hear how we sound, we would just be disgusted with ourselves. And we say, well, what the hell are you doing? Why do you sound so upset? Why do you sound so stressed? And then you begin to produce answers to your own questions, and yes, some of these answers are perhaps not true, and so you're fooling yourself, and you have to acknowledge that you have been fooling yourself. You've been blaming it on others. You've never listened to yourself and said like, wait a second, I don't want to sound like this. I don't want to behave like this. I can sound differently right now. And then if I sound different, I feel better And then I say something better. And then I understand myself better. It's all very obvious, but it's up to you to do it. Nobody wants to talk about or come clean about the difference between embodied language and disembodied language. The alienating, phony, superficial, superstitious language they engage in every day, because it is embarrassing to admit that we compulsively do something against our own will. Yes, without realizing it. Yeah, that is what you do every day. And that's why you don't want to hear me say that, because you feel like I'm accusing you. No, I'm not accusing you. I'm simply stating a fact which you haven't acknowledged. A fact about your life, which makes your life into a hell, the miserable hell that it is. Yeah? I live a different life than you. I talk very differently than you. That is because I have embodied language. So once you own up to your disembodied language, you just can't help but recognize that your common way of using your language, your disembodied language, it is actually against your freedom. Yeah. So here, do you see this flag? That's the American flag. I'm an American. I'm a free individual. So how free are you if you don't have embodied language? You ask yourself that question. I know the answer to my question. I don't have any questions. I know that I have embodied language. Yeah. All right.